Noon, everyone. We're delighted that you could take time to join us today. And on behalf of the 5-star accredited Chamber of Commerce, I want to welcome you to this webinar. My name is Jim Rice, and I serve as the chair as the Education Division for the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce. We're really happy to have you today because we are going to hear some exciting updates on the Stafford Municipal School District. We look forward to hearing how Stafford is continuing to be constant, be innovative, and be extraordinary. I want to acknowledge our sponsors before I introduce our speakers. We have Lena Sabuni with AutoArc Architects, LLC, as a sponsor, a longtime supporter of all the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce education events. And we also have Cynthia Pena, representing Linebarger Law Firm, who has worked for so many years helping school districts property taxes. And now to introduce our speakers, I want to inform everyone before I do that about a feature to allow you to participate in chat. It's the chat feature at the bottom of the screen. And if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat feature in which you can go in and ask a question, and then after the conclusion of their presentation, we'll go in there and call on you so you can ask your question. And Dr. Bostic and Mr. Caldwell will be happy to answer. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Robert Bostic, who is the superintendent of the Stafford Municipal School District. He has been dedicated to children and education for over 28 years. He has served as a teacher, a supervisor, an assistant principal, a principal, an assistant superintendent, and a superintendent. Dr. Bostic is active in community and civic and professional organization, and proudly leads with the philosophy that 100% of the district students will graduate from college or career readiness without remediation. And that is very impressive and a tall order. And next is Mr. Christopher Caldwell, who is a 24-year resident of Stafford, Texas, one of the oldest cities in the state. And he currently works at Houston Community College, where he is a professor of business administration and a member of the STEM committee. Mr. Caldwell is a perpetual supporter of education and has worked in the field of education for over 30 years. His roles in education have spanned from teacher's assistant to department chair to currently serving as president of the Stafford Municipal School District Board of Trustees. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Superintendent Dr. Bostic and Board President Mr. Christopher Caldwell. And Dr. Bostic, I'll let you take it away.
Well, all right. Really is putting that up there for us, and I want to start off the constant, the innovative, the extraordinary. Good morning, Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce and the Education Division, of course, of the Chamber. As mentioned before, my name is Dr. Robert Bostic, and I am the Superintendent of Schools for Stafford Municipal School District. I'd like to first start off by thanking the Fort Bend Chamber's Education Division for putting on the event this afternoon. Albeit virtual, it's wonderful to see each and every one of you as participants, and we're glad that you're here. I'd also like to thank our event sponsors today, AutoArc Architects and Linebarger Attorneys at Law. As we all know, we need partners and friends to get things done, and these are the folks that help us on our journey to making our vision into a reality. I'd also like to welcome my fellow colleagues and school districts in the room, including Fort Bend Independent School District and Lamar Consolidated Independent School District, both outstanding school districts in Fort Bend County and partners in this work to make sure that student achievement and student performance is at the highest level in our county, and that we're leading the charge for innovation in education. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't welcome every other attendee that took time out of your very busy schedules to be here with us today. I'd like to thank you for your attendance and your attention. I'm here today with our Board of Trustees and our Board President, Mr. Chris Caldwell, on behalf of SMSD to talk more about our topic this afternoon, the constant, the innovative, and the extraordinary. What an intriguing title, and especially important for our work today as we navigate the obstacles of a pandemic, the challenges of educating kids in the middle of a pandemic, and the trials of continuing to keep the bar high for performance so that we continue to keep our competitive edge in our community, in our city, and in our state. Now we're on the slide 2 here. So I'm honored to present with our board president, Mr. Chris Caldwell, who is the board president of Stafford Municipal School District. President Caldwell's tenure in Stafford Municipal School District as an elected official has paralleled my own. And I'm happy to say that we've served together for the children and citizens of Stafford for the last 7 years. It's been an honor to serve with a man who has a background in education and has put the work in behind more than just talking about what needs to go on differently in education. He believes, like I do, that the Stafford Municipal School District is on the verge of making history. He believes, like I do, that the children in the community of Stafford expect and deserve nothing but the very best in education for them. As you can read on the screen, President Caldwell is a longtime resident of the city of Stafford, and he works at Houston Community College as a professor and as a college leader and administrator. He's a longtime supporter of education, and he's always been a proponent for STEM education and for raising the bar for our kids. As you may have heard from our presenter earlier on, I've been the superintendent in Stafford for 7 years and will complete the end of the 7th year at the end of April 2021. I know that each of you can read the bio on the screen, but what's really important today is that I'm a champion for children, just like President Caldwell is, and I'll always be, and so will he. Let's go to the next slide. Today, we're going to go over 4 general topics. The first one I'll do is a general campus update. The second one I'll go over is the district's impact from COVID-19, specifically budget impacts, flexible learning options, and our attendance. Third, I'll go over our upcoming state legislation, our legislative agenda, and our support of agenda topics or legislative topics, as well as a few things that we oppose. And then finally, President Caldwell will go over the 4 pillars of perpetuity, and then we'll close our conversation out for today. Next slide. And then next slide, please. As all of you know, or at least I think you do, our school district is the only municipal school district in Texas and works directly with the city of Stafford. This powerful partnership allows SMSD the opportunity to succeed far beyond what a typical K-12 school district could accomplish in the same amount of time. To that end, we strategize as a team of 8, that is the Board of Trustees and the Superintendent, on ways that we believe are going to elevate and magnify the very best efforts of our students and staff members in the school district, as well as in the city of Stafford. We partner with the city on budget initiatives that move forward the district's vision and our overall mission. And we collaborate on supporting our overall mission of making sure that our children are successful. As a result of this partnership, you'll find many of our Stafford alumni in local businesses, as elected officials, and even those that take Stafford beyond Texas borders. In a time of constant change, it's nice to see some longevity in our own Board of Trustees and City Council. Our board members on the school board stayed the same for this term. Our City Council members in the city of Stafford stayed the same. And currently, we're in the middle of a runoff election for our city mayor position that was vacated by the recent loss of the longest serving mayor in the state of Texas, Mayor Leonard Scarcella. When Mayor Scarcella passed away over the summer, it did cause a vacancy. As a reminder to some and information to others, Election Day is Saturday, December 12th. Make sure that you go out and vote. In 2017, we had a bond issue in Stafford. This was a transformative bond with a very conservative budget for 7 major improvements that were valued at $62 million. And it is the largest investment in K through 12 education in Stafford's history. We're proof that it's not only what you spend, but it's how you spend it. In Stafford, we wanted to make the most out of every resource and out of every penny. The result of that bond issue and its successful passage helps our current campus look more like a university every day, at least more so than a typical K through 12 campus. And we can thank one of our event sponsors today because that was their brainchild with Auto Arc Architects. We have a new educational learning plaza. Our educational learning plaza features walking paths and trails with life-size learning mats. They have life-size US and metric markings to determine distance, and the only drone launching pad in a school district in Fort Bend County. No, I didn't have my glasses on my nose. I said we have the only drone launching pad in a school district in Fort Bend County. We also built a brand new 3-story middle school that's state-of-the-art and has all the technological advances, updates, and upgrades, and it's going to keep our teachers and students relevant in this ever-changing society. Next, we built a brand new administration building. The name of the administration building is the Leonard Scarcella Administration Building. It's a 2-story building that provides additional professional learning spaces and additional office space to provide more space on campus for students. Next, we're in the process of completing the new Stafford STEM Magnet. The STEM Magnet will be state-of-the-art, and its intent is to provide high-quality learning that's focused on STEM topics, STEM ideas, and STEM activities that will help children to learn about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that eventually earn paychecks and dollars that come with the innovations that they create while they're immersed at the magnet. Next, we have the renovation at our early childhood center and daycare. We looked at a couple of great examples in the state of Texas where school districts provided on-campus daycares for 6-year-olds all the way up to 4-year-olds. And we made the renovations and provided that for our staff members here in Stafford, as well as employees for the city of Stafford, and anyone else that would like to take advantage of high quality childcare and daycare. I just say get in before the spots are filled up. In fact, I think they are. We may have one. Next, we decided to rebuild our ag barn and the associated facilities around the ag barn, as well as some updates to locker rooms in every library on every campus throughout the district. Technology. As most of you know, this area of innovation is one of our power plants here in Stafford. We believe in the philosophy of STEM to earn, and that we want to make sure that each of our kids is equipped to be future ready as we pursue academic achievement for all. Since I joined SMSD in 2014 as a superintendent, we've been running full speed ahead with new initiatives like STEM to Earn, the new STEM Magnet Academy, robotics, drones, and even partnering with international sister schools in other countries. I, along with our board members, have been working feverishly to make decisions, create strategic plans, and execute our plans to become a one-to-one district with iPads since 2018. We had plans to make this initiative a reality long before COVID-19 ever came along. When COVID-19 came along, we accelerated our plan and purchased more than 3,200 iPads for students, and we purchased more than 300 iPads for teaching staff. Well, if you know me at all, I'm a little bit hesitant to say much more about what our technology initiatives are, but just rest assured that we utilize the Texas Education Agency's reimbursement initiative that provided 75% reimbursement for monies that were spent on devices for kids. We also spent money on safety and upgraded our mass notification system throughout all areas of the district. This major upgrade, along with some cybersecurity initiatives, is going to help us with security throughout the school district. And it is updated and upgraded many of our components that are going to help us as we deal with technical threats, including cyber threats and penetrations. To the district's continued credit to promote STEM to Earn, we continue to offer robotics from kindergarten through 12th grade and Swift coding to create just-in-time apps for the Apple Corporation and for their platform. That we have a class in 7th grade and 8th grade that teaches that coding, as well as our Microsoft coding for Imagine Learning. We've been using Microsoft for many, many, many years. We continue to have Parent University, where we offer free training to our parents for Office programs and Apple programs and how to utilize some of our software and our hardware. Next slide. And then next slide, please. As each of you know, in Fort Bend County, we're on a red. Because of that designation, I'm appreciative that we're here virtual today. What does that mean for schools as far as COVID-19? Our attendance dipped from the regular 3,600 students, as I'm sure many of our fellow districts did during the pandemic. We used a hold harmless designation from TEA to provide us with a sustainable amount of money that is based on our previous student attendance to sustain our budget during the time when many children were at home. Hold harmless brings up budget impacts. I've seen several school boards and school board agendas in Fort Bend County and throughout Texas, and Stafford was not unique to budget impacts of COVID-19. The amount of taxes that we collected were impacted negatively because many people didn't have money to pay for their bills or have jobs. So the taxes were put kind of at the back of the book. So while the school district will pick up these dollars later on, currently those taxes are not going to be money that we can use in our current budget. Stafford also provided flexible learning options. The Texas Education Agency, along with our own ideas of what it takes to be a great school district, required that we provide flexible learning options that provided face-to-face learning for some parents and students, as well as online options for those that were at home. The sudden onslaught of technology seemed to swamp our hardware providers, and many students and parents were left to use their own devices and telephones and Wi-Fi to get schoolwork done on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, the Compulsory School Attendance Act. Our campus is already open, but we're going to have students that need to be back to come back to school. Next slide. Upcoming state legislation. On to the next one. Next slide. You heard a little bit about it already in my earlier comments, but we support hold harmless funding to provide school districts with the necessary resources to educate their students. Let's be clear here that even though a vaccine may be coming out in the next couple of days or minutes or hours or whenever, and we're going to be so thankful for it, it's going to take a little bit of time to make sure that we get families and children that are comfortable with bringing or sending all their children back to school. And until that time, we need hold harmless funding in order to take care and pay for our teachers, our buildings, our maintenance and operations. We also need flexibility in funding for virtual and blended school. One of the things that we learned over the pandemic, because I believe you learn something every time, is that when we had virtual and blended learning, that some families really enjoy virtual and blended learning. Our current legislation doesn't really allow for a lot of additional virtual schools beyond those that were already created prior to 2013. So we believe and support trying to get that flexibility. Modifying and updating and adjusting the school funding formula. We want that school funding formula to not just pay for students that are physically here on campus, but also provide for the flexibility of those families that have enjoyed virtual learning and want to keep that going. We also support pathways from early childhood education to a college degree because we want to be a P through 16 provider, where we're providing everything we can from the classroom to college roads. We do that in conjunction with our partners like HCC, where we've been very successful at being able to have several of our children to graduate with associate's degrees from HCC before they get their high school diploma. So we're completely into that. We're also into workforce development and entrepreneurship. I think that stands on its own. We, of course, believe in student safety and mental health counseling. There are several people and children and families that need that help and that will be impacted for years to come. Stafford has always been a proponent of full-day pre-K funding and modifying the schools, full-day funding and modifying the school funding system in order to meet those needs. We believe that if you get children into the classrooms early, the better off they're going to do. We oppose any policy or legislation that removes funding or resources away from public schools to any other division or non-public school entity. We oppose any additional accountability without adequate funding to fully implement the requirements. I think you'll find, even though they said that the STAR test would be administered but would not count towards A through F, most school districts or most school teachers like I am, and I'm a glorified school teacher, we want to know what our kids are doing. We want to be held accountable, but we just believe you either need to pay to give us the adequate tools to get that done, and you need to make sure that the playing field is level. Next slide. President Caldwell.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bostic. As a spokesman for the Board of Trustees and the community, it is incumbent of me to ensure that our school district is functional, operational, sustainable, and successful. To achieve this, there must be clearly defined roles, goals, and expectations. It's like a coloring book for me. I show Dr. Bostic the picture that I want, and he provides the creativity and colors to bring that finished product to life. It's really governance and administration at its best. The next few PowerPoint slides that you will see will help define the constructs by which Stafford Municipal School District operates. Simply, it is our combination to success. And I'll give you the combination numbers. You can't use them, but I'll give them to you anyway. The combination number is 13421. And on the first slide here, the first number is 1. We're one team. Stafford is very unique in that we are the only municipal school district in the state of Texas, and we have to have a relationship with our city administrators, and we also have to have a great relationship with our community. So not only is it SMSD, but it's also the city of Stafford and the citizens of Stafford. So that's the basic foundation of which we build our building. When I say 3, we have 3 core principles. When I became board president 3 years ago, there were 3 core principles that I say we have to operate by. We will always operate with integrity. We will always operate with transparency, and we will always be accountable to everyone in the community and the city as a whole, and also our students. So the first 2 numbers in our combination is 1 and 3, one team. Then we have 3 core principles. Out of those 3 core principles is where I actually began to involve Dr. Bostic as a team member. When I said earlier that this is a coloring book, where we gave him the design and we've given him the freedom to create the school district in a way that he thinks is most feasible. So now we have our 4 pillars in which we build our school district upon. And I'm going to briefly define them, and I want Dr. Bostic to come in and color that picture for you so you can understand what those 4 pillars are. The first pillar that we build our school district upon is culture, okay? And that's where we have our vision statement, our values, our practices, the people that are here, the narratives, the unique stories that we want to tell about Stafford, because again, we are very unique. The next pillar that we build our school district upon is the climate. And the climate is about the atmosphere of the organization that we've created. When you walk onto our campus, we want you to feel like you belong here. We want you to feel like you're smart. We want you to feel as if you can achieve anything. And we want to provide that type of atmosphere. Third pillar that we have is called the environment. And the environment is huge because sometimes the environment is a little bit out of our control. The state of Texas has a lot to do with the environment. Our city has a lot to do with the environment. The economic conditions of our community has a lot to do with the environment. And here recently, health has had a lot to do with our environment. But we try to control that as much as possible so that we can help the students achieve. And the last pillar that we have are our expectations. I was sitting in a Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce meeting. It might have been 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And right before I became president, as a matter of fact, so it was 4 years ago. And it popped up to us that keep it 100. We want 100% of our students graduating. We want 100% of our students passing the SAT. We want 100% of our students passing all state mandated exams. We want 100% of our students reading on certain grade levels at certain points. So those are our expectations. And I feel when we have these 4 pillars that we are able to achieve the goals that we want to. So Dr. Bostic, if you don't mind, if you could paint just those 4 pillars real briefly on how we operate that at Stafford Municipal School District.
Absolutely. President Caldwell, he just gets me excited every time we talk about this stuff, because if we start with our first one with culture, he's absolutely right. We said that we were a STEM to earn district. You don't think that was by accident, and it wasn't as a solo act. I mentioned that it was a team of 8 activity, meaning the superintendent and the board of trustees. We work as one group in order to create a culture here that when you come to Stafford, I like to say, welcome to Stafford. When you come into Stafford, it means something. The culture is one that has a value of a private school education and a public school. We want you to feel like, hey, you belong here. This is somewhere where you want to be. I've never met a parent who said, let me give my child the second best or third best education that you can provide. Every one of all of the team of 8, that's our philosophy. Climate. It's all about atmosphere, just like the president said. The organization is based on culture. The climate is about the perceptions and feelings that everybody has regarding the culture. We had to change that format 7 years ago and say, what is it that we believe we want this climate to be? We want you to be able to be proud when you walk in. It's kind of like when you say your last name or you say your first name and come in and say, my name is Bostic. I tell my kids at home, you tell them that name with pride. You know who you are. The climate has to be one of respect, high expectations, performance, and that we're getting things done, not one of where we're holding our heads down. And finally, an environment. The environment provides the tools. It's got a lot of features, as he mentioned, that come around that can influence the environment. And so that has probably been one of our largest balancing acts that we continue to do with our partners in the city, but others around us, because while we have high expectations for what we want, and that's that last one, the next pillar, because we do believe in keeping it 100, and I'm gonna jump on that in just a little bit, and I'll shut up here. But the environment has to be one that provides such an area where kids can grow and learn, where teachers feel comfortable to teach, where administrators feel comfortable to do the administration and tasks that are good for kids. And then everybody has to have their eyes set on the prize. And that's our expectations of the Keep It 100 goals. You may say to yourself, that's a big chunk. But here's what we discovered many years ago. If 95% of the kids pass something and 5% of the kids don't, 5% of those kids are 100% of somebody's child. We don't let any kids fall through the cracks. We do not believe in that. We expect for 100% of our kids to graduate college or career ready without remediation. And so we plan for that. And that's the way that's set up, President Caldwell.
Thank you, Dr. Bostic. Now, the next two numbers of the combination are extremely important, and for being Chamber of Commerce, we're going to make sure we get you some T-shirts with our combination on it, and at the bottom it's going to say, if you don't understand, ask us, and that's going to be a recruitment tool to get students to Stafford. Look, any kind of way we can market is we have to do it, get our kids back in our public schools. But the next combination, number to the combination is 2. Next slide, I'm sorry. The next number to the combination is 2. And 2 actually represents the concepts, our concepts. Our concepts is triangular in that at one base of your triangle, we have student-centered. At the other base of the triangle, we have student focus. And at the top, the pinnacle of the triangle at the top, we have student achievement and success. We believe that while trying to achieve these two concepts, while driving these two concepts, we will reach student achievement, student success, which is the number 1, which is our goal. Let me explain. When I say student-centered, at the base of every decision that we do here at Stafford Municipal School District, the student is at the core component. It's not politically driven. It's not a personal agenda. It's all about our students. The student drives the inputs and outcomes. Everything that is done with the student in mind and the student only. The implementation of any program must be based around the student, as it is the fundamental element. And I'll give Dr. Bostic an opportunity to elaborate on this in just a few minutes. Next, at the base of our triangle is student focus. Okay, student focus is more of a personal touch that we do here. It's paying close attention to each student and creating an environment that will help them flourish to their full potential, exploring the needs of each student and developing a plan of action to address those needs. Dr. Bostic and myself are really, really big on emotional intelligence. And we implore our teachers to not only do the academic part, but also have the emotional intelligence part. Everyone can have a high IQ, but we want our teachers, our faculty, our staff, even our grounds people to have that emotional intelligence part. And I think that's really big on developing a student. Now, when we have these two concepts, student-centered and student-focused, once we've attained those at the very pinnacle, at the very top, we would then have student achievement and student success. And I'll leave these last few minutes for Dr. Bostic to kind of hone in on that and close it out for me.
So as President Caldwell said, when we started with this work 7 years ago, we said student-centered. We really had to define that. So one of the things we knew we had to do is you got to get students involved. Have you ever had a conversation with kids and then you didn't have the kids in it? That's what we had to change. So we changed that immediately. So we started with student groups where no one was too big or their position was too high or they were so removed that they couldn't be taught, because we're only here for students, from the superintendent to the custodians. We changed that. Student focus. We decided that those student groups, we wanted to hear from them. And you know what? Kids at school are just like my kids at home. They take you through changes, is the way I like to say it. And that's exactly what they did. We call them the gold jackets here, our student ambassadors and all these student groups. And we met with them and we talked to them. They actually helped us to create our strategic plan for the school district. All of the stuff and all the buildings that you're looking at today, students were part of that. Student focused, student centered. And then finally, student achievement and success. Well, check this out. I believe in this philosophy, and so does President Caldwell, and so do the members of the board. Begin with the end in mind. Nobody that I ever met said, you know what, I want to be just look down on me, I'm not doing well. Every student that I ran into wants to achieve at the highest level. No one wanted to be below that. So we had one team approach to try to make sure that we did that. And the first thing we had to do was be transparent and focused on kids at the core of who they were, and to be real with each other about what that was, and then to walk hand in hand to get that done.
Thank you, Dr. Bostic. And lastly, before we move to questions and answers in the next slide, again, Stafford's combination to success is 1, 3, 4, 2, 1. And this is how we're going to achieve it. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present, giving us an opportunity. My mom and dad always say it's a poor duck that doesn't quack in his own pond. So thank you for allowing Stafford Municipal School District to quack in his own pond today. I would like to give special thanks. I mean, and I do mean this from the bottom of my heart, to Audit. They have made our campus a college environment. I would be hard pressed to go around the country and see a college campus that is as beautiful as our campus. Not throwing any shade to Fort Bend, but hey, I think we have the best campus, the best looking campus in Fort Bend and Harris County. I'm just gonna put it out there. And thanks to Lena and Mike for making that dream come through. So at this time, we would like to know if there are any questions or answers for Dr. Bostic or myself.
I think you're
I
muted.
think Mr. Rice is muted.
I think he's muted.
I forgot to unmute myself, Dr. Bostic. Started talking and I get carried away sometimes, but thank you, Dr. Bostic and Mr. Caldwell, for your presentation. I think to start us off, I'll ask a couple of questions that have come up recently. And one of the questions comes from the Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath. He has been hosting a monthly telephone or Zoom meeting with all of the TASB directors, for about the last 6-7 months. And he, in light of COVID and everything that is going on, he posed a question to us, which everyone is working on right now. And that is, how many of your parents, do you know offhand, not asking you to do a survey or anything, but how many of your parents might be, particularly with your early childhood or pre-K and kindergarten, would like to have do-over for their kids for next year because they've been at home?
I'd probably say an easy 90% would like to try that again. Any parent with early kids in those early learning stages, I think it is almost irreparable damage to leave that year out. You can't. It's like when you talk to a parent and something else, say, hey, you know what? I just missed that year. I forgot it. Not going to help me, and especially at those formative years when they're early. I call them the babies. Nope. I think if they could get a do-over, that'd be great. 90%. And I have not heard parents say, hey, you know what? We should penalize. I don't think that they believe they're getting penalized, but that would be open for discussion, of course.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Dr. Bostic. That kind of brings to mind, you mentioned early in your presentation the idea of STAR testing. And in light of the fact that the commissioner is going to waive the A through F rule, which is really not a good rule, are you in favor of proceeding with administering the STAR examination to your students this year?
I know President Caldwell wants to weigh in on that too, because he and I have had many conversations about that. Pres, you want to say something first? And
I really don't want to steal your thunder, Dr. Bostic, but I don't think it would be very accurate, an accurate measure of our students by administering the test this year, seeing that we have so many different factors that go into the learning processes, the new systems. We have some uncontrollable factors in the learning process for our students, and the number one being parental involvement in the homes with the kids, especially K through 5, K through 6. It's very important. So when we don't have the students in our hands for 8 hours a day, I think it's kind of hard for you to hold us accountable for something that we don't have control over. So, to be politically correct, I don't think that the test should be administered this year. I think we should be granted a reprieve, and at a very minimum, allow us an opportunity to try to find measures to close the gap that we're having with the learning processes now, and allow us to explore those options. Dr. Bostic?
All the statistics point to what President Caldwell is actually saying. The only advantage statistics would have with giving a STAR test that's already going to be skewed, not only because people have not had the opportunity to learn the content, not only because whenever it is administered, it's administered on different devices. And in fact, at this point, I'm already into this multiple regression setup. That it's not going, you're going to have a lot of areas where it's not going to work well. However, we're not saying that we don't want to be held accountable for making sure the kids learn. I just don't know that the STAR test is the best way to do it. And I really don't believe that the A through F accountability is there. So I very much concur with the president. And I would bet, Jim, that you probably concur with the same.
Yes, and I'm just going to ask some other questions of you. Might take you out of your comfort zone, but when we have these discussions with the commissioner, given the fact that A through F is not on the table for this year, and he asks if you don't administer the STAR test, then what would you administer to see where your kids are? How would you evaluate to see where they are? Because that's his question to us. And of course, we read this in the newspaper all the time about this has been a lost year for students throughout the country. And how are we going to try to get them caught up again? And so the question is, if we don't do the STAR exam,
and what
would we do to gauge how our students have learned this year?
So first of all, there are a lot of products out there. We use MAP in Stafford. So there are lots of norm reference tests that actually test how our kids are doing, the normative level of that throughout the nation. So Stafford has purchased the product. I would bet you that Fort Bend has, and I'm sure Lamar Consolidated has. I know that they have. It's great educational institutions. That's what you're doing. Right now, STAR, as well as many of our campus-based assessments, those are not norm reference exams, just so you know. They're based on whatever criteria we set in our state. And we hold them to such high esteem, but literally outside of the state of Texas, they mean virtually what? Nothing. And I said this to a state representative some time ago. Think of it like this. When your child finishes with the STAR exam and they pass 100% of those, can they use that to enter into college in Texas? Texas A&M, University of Texas, University of Houston? Oh, none of them? In fact, they don't even care. The only thing they care about is the SAT or the ACT. Don't get me on the soapbox because I'll ran that all day. So I really believe there's several other assessments that do a much better job than that.
Fair enough. Now I've got a different question for you. And Mr. Caldwell, you alluded to your new campus and how it is university kind of centric and conveys that impression. And my question is, how has your educational philosophy, how did that philosophy, and how did you use your philosophy to convey it to AutoArc to design the facilities that you have now? And why did you choose to do that?
Yes, sir. And I'll start off, and Dr. Bostic can finish it because we're on the same page. The one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to simulate for our students what it would feel like to be on the college campus. We didn't want there to be a huge gap. We wanted them to have a campus where they will be proud of, a campus that has a clean, open look. Because our students go college touring and they see these college campuses, and there's a vast difference between high school campuses and college campuses. But we want to indoctrinate our students at an early age because the environment is big. It has a lot to do with your mindset. It has a lot to do with raising the expectations of the students. It has a lot to do with raising the standards of your campus. And even, I think, the teaching of our instructors. When you can look out and you have a college campus, you have an open campus, it helps them to teach, to me, better. There are a lot of studies that say, colors in classrooms, lighting, and all of this has a lot to do with the learning processes for students. So we kind of put all of this together, and it was crumbled pieces. It was a jigsaw puzzle of about 10,000 pieces, and we gave it to Audit. And we say, this is what we want, to put it together. And they did a very good job. As most of you guys know, I graduated from Rice University, and in between the hedges, we have and it's just an awesome environment. I graduated from a public school here in HISD, and when I walked on the campus of Rice University, I might not have been smart, but just walking around, I felt like I was smart. I felt like I was the smartest person in Texas, and I don't know if it was false or not, and I achieved, I performed to that level because that was my expectations once I got there. And that's one of the soft things that we want to hear at this campus. We want you to walk on this campus and feel like you're walking on a straight Jesuit campus or a Kincaid campus or a St. John's campus, where it's like, ooh, I am elite. And that's what we wanted, and that's what Audit helped produce for us. Dr. Bostic, I don't want to take any more time.
No, you killed it. That was it. I got thumbs up. That's game over.
Well, that's what we want. And Jim, can I say one more thing real quick? And we talked about this with the state testing. I want to caution those who say that we need state testing, because it's a dangerous slope for us in public schools. Because if you test the public schools unfairly, and at this rate, I think everyone will probably get an F. You begin to open up the doors for charter schools, private schools, vouchers, because you're holding us to a standard that's not fair. And you give them credence and you give them fire. Well, the public schools are not doing what they're supposed to do. That's not true. We have wonderful teachers. We have wonderful staff and administrators who are working overtime to ensure that our students are getting quality education. And that's hard to measure. Those are some immeasurables. So that's just one of my arguments for that non-testing.
Well said, Mr. Caldwell. We have a question here from James Idea, who is commenting on the robotics program. And his question is, what are some of the ways that local businesses can support the district's robotics program and the preparation for the launch of the new magnet school?
Two things. We started some years ago a thing called Adopt a Bot. So you can adopt a robot anytime you want to. I've got, believe it or not, just like most superintendents, I've got my communications folks there all around me right now. If she had my drone over here, I would show you that you can adopt a drone too. That's one of the ways you can literally say, hey, how can I do that? You can do something then. The second thing, because we use First Lego League and First Robotics, I was an old First Robotics coach way back in early 2000s. So I'm an old robotics coach, is to actually become one of our local experts that helps us and comes in, and you work with the kids when they learn how to code and do things after school. So we actually ask for that. And then whenever they set up their presentations, you would come and give your expertise. Those are two immediate ways you can help.
Okay. Let's see. One of the things you commented on earlier, Dr. Bostic, was in your advocacy agenda going forward, advocating with the state to continue the full funding for public education. And we've heard from the comptroller earlier this year, he was very, very concerned. 60% of the state's revenue comes from sales tax. And that revenue was off during COVID. And he was projecting a $4.8 billion budget shortfall, I think. And I think we're going to learn in January it may not be that big. We don't know for sure, but it's still going to be a shortfall. I know in a neighboring school district right next door to you, they are considering moving forward with an efficiency audit, which is required by the state in order to hold a TRE next November. Have you all given any consideration for that?
Absolutely. We've actually discussed the philosophy of a TRE. Now, the challenge is that when we started to look at what I call looking at the tea leaves, is to find out the capacity of the community and whether they would be willing to support a TRE. For those who are watching, that's a tax rate election. And the tax rate election says that, hey, by the way, we need to adopt some larger pennies in order to do the work that we need to do. And we'll put that in our maintenance and operations side of the budget. And so we have explored that, and we're in the middle of exploring that, along with some of the other efficiencies that we can do, with some of our staffing, because with the variance and the balancing of classes and things, with some kids at home and some not, and then the state not providing the dollars through the hold harmless piece, because they didn't give us the amount of money for the number of students that you had. They only gave you based on the amount of attendance back at some snapshot day that they had arbitrary in April. We were in the middle of COVID then. So.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that every school district is concerned about that. And every time I hear the legislature rattling their sabers about asking the school districts to spend their fund balance, it makes me nervous. That's a really bad idea.
Very nervous. Very nervous. We had. Yeah.
Well, this has really been a great presentation, and I would like to suggest that next year, as soon as we can get out from underneath this COVID issue, we'd love to have a meeting there in your new facilities so you can have a chance to show them off. I'd love to see them in person.
Come on.
Hey, we'll make that date happen. We just got to get all the vaccines out to everybody, and when it's safe, love to do that. Before I make some kind of final comments, I would like to invite our sponsors to say a few words if they would like to. Lena, would you like to make a few comments?
Thank you, Jim. I just would like to applaud Dr. Bostic and Chris Caldwell for their commitment to the community. We had the pleasure to work with this unbelievable, committed school district, municipal school district, and community, by the way, and that make it so, the job was so easy on us because we have a great partnership there. They have a vision. We very humbly put it together for them, and I'm very glad to be here today to sponsor this event.
Well, thank you. And you can lead us on the tour next year.
Oh, absolutely. There's more to come, hopefully, Jim.
And then Cynthia with Linebarger, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I am an attorney with Linebarger Law Firm, and I know our firm is very happy to work with Fort Bend, and we're very proud of everything that we've been able to work with y'all, and we can be able to be part of this webinar.
Well, thank you both. And Dr. Bostic and Mr. Caldwell, we'd like to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule. Anyone who doesn't think the teachers and staff and the superintendent and the board are working overtime, I'm here to tell you they are during this COVID pandemic, working extremely hard. And if you get a chance to tell them, give them a pat on the back, I hope all of our friends and neighbors listening in will take the opportunity to do that, because they're doing what Dr. Bostic said, making sure that 100% of the kids receive a good education, prepared to be successful in life. And that's what it's really all about. So thank you both for being here with us today. And before we close, I'll just say that we do have a few upcoming events. On Tuesday, December 15th at 8 o'clock, the Infrastructure Division of the Chamber is going to host updates from the Texas Water Development Board with board member Kathleen Jackson. That will be via a Zoom webinar. Water is the new gold, or the new oil, that we all need to be concerned about, having good, safe, potable drinking water. And that should be a very interesting webinar on December 15th at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then in January, on January 20th, we will have a Zoom webinar featuring Dr. Matt Robinson, who is a board member on the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education has recently completed their framework for school board governance. He'll be talking about that, and it should be an interesting discussion. So in the meantime, I hope that everyone has a very safe and happy holiday season, a happy new year. We'll all be happy to get 2020 behind us and into 2021. So we hope that you all stay safe and healthy. And again, a final thank you to our sponsor, Auto Arc Architects and Linebarger Law Firm, and all of our attendees who've been here today. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.